Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Collegian Football Podcast. Alexis, the train keeps on going with 3-0 Penn State after an enormous whiteout win at Beaver Stadium against Auburn last weekend. Alexis, before we get into everything, just talk about Saturday. It was just the perfect day,
yes,
was it not?
It was an unreal experience, honestly. Also, let's mention halfway through this 4-game homestand, we have 2 more games in Beaver Stadium before the Nittany Lions hit the road going to Iowa. So we're going to be able to see Villanova on Saturday and then another primetime matchup against Indiana next week. So going to finish out this homestand and then hit the road. So I think Penn State has a lot of momentum on their side in order to, get through the rest of their home games unblemished. But, yeah, Saturday, unreal experience. I mean, just the second we got onto it within
campus
seriously, it was just an unreal buzz in the atmosphere, just walking through all the tailgates and everything. I'm sure a lot of people got to see a lot of familiar faces when it comes to Penn State football, namely Saquon Barkley made a couple tailgate appearances. So, I mean,
I saw his beer pong game was a little rusty.
Left a lot to be desired there. But a lot of former Nittany Lions there, a lot of possible future Nittany Lions it was just when the recruits made their way onto the fields James Franklin said that it wasn't, an extraordinary amount of recruits as compared to previous years, but it just seemed like there were so many people there.
Yeah.
It was just insane, but that's great. And they even earned a commitment right off of that.
Yeah, how about
that? That's insane.
A halftime commitment. That was pretty cool. But I also want to give some respect and credit to the Auburn fans that showed up because there were definitely a lot of them.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I remember I was walking from – my parents actually came up for the game, and I was walking with them over to the media entrance where we were going to go our separate ways. And we walked past, where the away team enters in, and it was just a sea of orange. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of Auburn fans, and they were hyped. They were ready to go. So props to them for making that travel. I mean, SEC travels well, I guess. So props to them.
Yeah. Something I kind of wanted to do on Saturday is I made my way and walked around the tailgates for a little bit just to get the atmosphere. My parents were here too.
Awesome.
So I was able to, hang out with them a little bit and then look at the tailgates. But I wanted to go in super early because I wanted to see just the entire wave of people, of just groups of people coming in. So I get in there probably I would say 4:15 with and then you have a 7:30 kickoff. So nobody was in the stadium yet. And then you're just it's so peaceful and quiet when you're in there, and then literally just
it's the calm
it was waves
before
of people,
the storm.
and literally before you knew it, the place was packed. And I thought the way I tweeted something out about it, and I'll give Wisconsin some slack. It was a noon game, which is 11 a.m. start there, but the crowd at the Wisconsin game, the student section was barely half filled with 10 minutes before kickoff. And the student section on Saturday for the whiteout, an hour before kick, you couldn't find a seat in the student section.
Yeah,
and most of the other just normal admission was packed as well. So just what an incredible show out by everyone who was in Happy Valley, who had tickets to the game. And James Franklin said it, if you can't make it to the game or you have a ticket, you're not sure if you want to use it, make sure your seat is filled. And over 109,000 people. So we saw that. And still waiting on my throat lozenge, though.
Yeah, I think we're all still waiting on those halls from James Franklin. So halls, James Franklin, either of you are listening, someone from Halls, please let us know.
We'll take a sponsorship. We part of the NIL?
I guess. Count us in. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of the whiteout, let's talk about Auburn a little bit.
Let's get into the game.
Yes, exactly. And we talked about it before the game, but we were really interested in seeing Penn State's defense go up against Auburn's run game, and it was a show on both sides. And, Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby, let's talk about both of them. They were phenomenal. Yeah. They definitely left it all out on the field, and I think we were all impressed. They're definitely gonna go places in terms of college football, in terms of the NFL. I think that they're gonna be 2 names we're gonna have to keep an eye on.
Tank Bigsby was freaking sick, and he is like that type of player that you just don't get tired of. That running back, you don't get tired of watching because he's so
dynamic.
He can do so many different things. Like there was like a time where they would get him going in the screen game, and like when he his yards after contact is like just unbelievable.
Broke a lot of tackles.
Yeah, you couldn't arm tackle him. You had to be form tackle every time. He was just so hard to bring down. I mean, you saw it on a couple drives. Like he was just absolutely dominating, and it was pretty funny. I think it happened multiple times, but he was just getting so fired up by the crowd.
Oh my gosh!
He would be like, it would be like a 4th down or 3rd down. He'd be going to the sideline. The crowd would be going nuts, and he would be asking for like more. And I was like, okay, he was loving it. But so he was just awesome, and Jarquez Hunter too. I mean, that hurdle was pretty.
Oh my gosh, very Saquon Barkley-esque.
Oh yeah.
If anything in that game, I think that's
he's a true freshman too. So has an insane future ahead of him, and they're really set at that position.
Yeah, and I remember James Franklin saying, in his media before the game. He was saying, we have to work on wrap tackling. We're not going to be strong enough to, just give a shove, give a little arm. We're going to have to bring these guys down with our full bodies, full force, and that's going to have to continue as they get into Big Ten play here shortly. So this was a great game to work on that.
Oh, yeah.
And, they succeeded. They did, Auburn's run game They ran all over them at some points. Yes, it was hard to watch this defense try and stop them. But overall, they adjusted very, very well. And they didn't let it get the best of them. So great game to work on that.
The one thing, and by the way, we need more of the Big Ten SEC matchups because
100%.
The hype was so it definitely just fit the bill. Like it was like you could tell they both had pride on the line, not necessarily for their respective conferences, but they don't play each other very often. And
it was personal.
This was a game that both these teams, you could tell, really wanted to win. Like it was a well played game. There wasn't a ton of mistakes by either team except that one fumble in the backfield, which by Auburn, which was horrible. But and I think you could sense their physicality, which we talked about in the SEC. How everyone would say how different that is. The physicality, the size, the athleticism. It's just a little notch above the rest of the country. I think you could see in their physicality that that's what they preach down in Auburn, down the SEC. And unfortunately, that came out to hurt them one time.
Yeah.
The Jacoby McClain ejection was huge. And again, this is a once a podcast thing. Maybe we'll do it one day. We could do an entire podcast on simply the targeting rules. We could probably go through every example.
This obviously has to be examined. I mean, there's been a targeting call that has been accepted in every single game so far for Penn State. Whether it was the right call, the wrong call, this is obviously something that the NCAA has to look at. And even at the NFL, they have to look at it too, everywhere, because it's just not well defined enough to the point where we should have something that's more definitive, whether it's right now we have all this gray area. And you don't know what it is.
Yeah, it just makes zero sense to me because he was, again, was very similar to the Ellis Brooks play from the fact where it's just the intent was so clear that he was trying to just make a football play.
Yeah.
I think he tweeted something out to Cody McClain, and I was like, said, he goes, what was I supposed to do? Let him score?
I did see that.
It was literally on the goal line. He's desperation mode. Just it was so non-malicious. And obviously we tend to, or just football, in football, both professionally and in college now, we tend to cater to the offensive personnel so much more.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you see in the NFL and in college, the offensive players are also lowering their head. It's not when the running back
trying to get
his
those
head
extra
down
couple
and,
yards.
Yeah, try to get those extra yards. And you're teaching the defensive players to go low. How are you supposed to teach form tackling? It's tough. It's really hard. And you're going to see this is going to be a trend that's going to continue throughout this year. I would not be shocked to see some sort of rule change. The thing I've always proposed is you treat it like basketball, like a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2. And if there's contact to the head, but it's a football play like the Ellis Brooks, Kobe McLean plays, it's a 1. It's a 1. And there's no ejection. There's a 15-yard penalty.
Yep.
That's it. And then for the ones that are malicious, that's a 2, and you eject them from the game and possible suspension. And that's just, to me,
couldn't agree more.
Such a clear fix to the rule. So I think that'll be something that's definitely proposed.
NCAA, if you're listening to this.
Yeah. Let's make that happen.
Last couple things we want to touch on with Auburn. Let's talk a little bit about Bo Nix, because we were really looking forward to seeing, this highly recruited guy that the Auburn faithful were so excited about when he came in. Whether you think that he's lived up to that standard or not. I mean, he had a pretty solid game.
Yeah, he had always been, or kind of had the negative connotation around him where he doesn't perform well in big road games. I think he was something like 2-6 against ranked opponents before in ranked road games. But obviously, the SEC is a really tough place to play, and I think he wanted to prove to not only his team, but just everyone watching that, he is such a highly recruited, highly rated guy for a reason. And there was definitely some times where I thought they didn't have as much trust in him as I thought. Like, obviously, you have such an unbelievable running game, and you have to utilize that. But in the first half, I really didn't think they let Bo Nix, go that much.
I would agree with that.
But I think once the second half came and they were down a little bit and they had to start throwing the ball, he did that. He actually did make some good throws. But, again, it's just it's almost like Sean Clifford. He didn't put them in a position to lose the game. So he did everything he kind of had to do, but he missed a few throws here and there, and we've seen Clifford do the same.
But what guy hasn't,
Yeah, absolutely. But he is not the type of guy right now that's going to put an offense on his back, and that's what a lot of the people who recruited him and thought and scouted him thought that he was going to be. Yeah. And unfortunately, that just might not be the case for them, but. This was actually a big game for him, I think, in his growth potentially, just because he didn't, wasn't that detrimental to the team in a big environment, and I thought he remained pretty poised in the pocket. Like he
gave them a chance to win.
Absolutely, he gave them a chance to win, and I think had there been a couple of minutes left on that clock, who knows, he could have led them on a game-winning drive. But Penn State's defense is also. I mean, right now, they're incredibly
Could you have predicted what kind of play they would run if they would have got to the goal line?
The Kirk Shiraka special.
Yeah. Auburn was very, on 4th down throwing a goal line fade. It was very reminiscent of 2020 Penn State and Kirk Shiraka's goal line fades.
I mean, that was like...
You had to know at least one of those 4 plays was going to be just, a garbage throwaway play.
You could check, last year, you could check that off on your bingo card at least once a game. So, I mean, that was like, if I'm an Auburn fan, that's got to be just really, really frustrating.
I mean, it was frustrating for Penn State fans to watch last year, too.
Oh, yeah, but this is just... It was such a big moment, and you literally have Tank Bigsby, who's ran all over a really good Penn State front 7 all night, and... How are you not getting the ball in his hands in that play? Like, it's that call always baffle me because to me, especially in college, unless you have like a physical go up and get it receiver that not all these teams have, like it's just not a smart play call, and I feel like it never works. Like it never.
Even when
works.
you do have that go-to guy, I mean, can't you really? It's not reliable. I mean,
unless you have like an Allen Robinson like on your team, that's just gonna is a big receiver that can go up and get it. Like, it's just, like, last year they were running, like, goal line fades to, like, Parker Washington. And I'm like, oh, my goodness.
Not that he's not good, but,
I mean, that's just not what he does. Like, that's not, like, his thing. Like, you get him going across the middle, not, like, on a fade in the end zone on a corner that's 2 inches taller than him.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's turn the corner on.
You got me frustrated with the 4th down fades.
Let's turn the corner on the 4th down goal line fade plays. Let's talk a little bit about Penn State's offense. Yes. I mean, they looked extremely comfortable in this environment. This is where they thrive, and you could clearly see that. Jahan Dotson obviously went off. You called it that he was going to, be a standout guy for them in this environment. He absolutely was. But also, Sean Clifford looked incredibly comfortable. He found his groove in this game, and it was really what this team needed in order to, as I said before, keep building this momentum in this homestand in order to get that confidence to to go on the road in Iowa City. And, he really did. He looked extremely comfortable. He willed them to get that win. And, they keep saying it in media that, Mike Yurcich, this is what they enjoy doing. They're really enjoying his style, this fast-paced environment. And is he what this team needed in order to compete?
I don't know if it's what this team needed, but it's what Sean Clifford certainly needed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about it all summer, and it's just such an obvious statement to anyone who watches Penn State football would see. But, this offense is only going as far as he could take them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to bring in someone here who could not only, fix his mechanics, fix his just turnover issues from last year, but just fix his confidence and his poise.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed when I've watched the game a few times now, just when he was in the pocket standing back there, even when Auburn got a rush, and which they did very often because the offensive line was phenomenal, by the way. And but when he was being rushed by the Auburn defensive line, he was really poised in there. He would step up, make a right move in the pocket, either take off and go or get it to the guy he could find first. His reads were almost perfect.
Yeah, he was very definitive in his decision making. He was confident,
decisive. Just his ability to step up in the pocket is something that's been a resurgence, because that's what he did in 2019 that made him so successful. And it reminded me on Saturday night of that year, because he just looked really just ready to face whatever was coming at him. And he just seemed very prepared, and that's obviously a credit to Yurcich, and obviously a credit to the wide receivers too, who had some phenomenal games. And look, again, Sean Clifford is the guy that if this offense is gonna go, it's him or it's not gonna run. So whatever he's doing right now, just to prepare mentally and obviously for whatever scheme he's facing, he needs to keep doing, because that was one of his better performances that we've seen from him in a Penn State uniform on Saturday night.
I would absolutely agree. And this is one of the better games.
We also have said it so much. As long as he's not killing them, he's fine. That one turnover was whatever. It was a punt basically at the end of the half. And he just put them in positions to win the game. And that's all you're asking from him. And he did that and more on Saturday. So you couldn't have asked for a better outing from Clifford, who should have won Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week.
According to James Franklin, too.
No, I mean, he definitely should have.
Yeah.
They gave it to the Michigan State quarterback, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's also talk about how tight end play finally played a role in this offense. I mean, on that first drive where they ended up scoring their first points of the game, Brenton Strange had a huge catch. Theo Johnson had a catch that how long did that go for? It took them all the way down to the goal line, and
he only had that one catch. I think it went for about 40 yards.
Yeah, that was essentially what led to their first points of the game. And it was a great throw from Clifford, but just that play design, just getting that down all the way. I mean, one more step forward, and he would have had a touchdown on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you did the big story on the tight ends this week. We've heard all summer and into the fall just about how this group is 3 deep, and they expect all of them, not just Brenton Strange, not just Theo Johnson, to compete. And I mean, Tyler Warren was step up.
That Wildcat package.
Step up when the lights shine brightest, and that's what he did. And it was really cool to be able to see them actually incorporate all three. I mean, we've heard them say it time and time again, but we saw it come to fruition. It was. Three of them made at least one critical play in this game, and they don't win that game without those plays. Especially, I loved, of course, the Dotson throw to Tyler Warren, which was awesome.
My gosh, that was honestly might be my top offensive play of the game.
That's just so fun. Please give me more of that, Mike Yosich. That was just great.
So as we said, tight end play played a huge role in this game. In the pass game. And protection for Penn State's run game. And I mean, they participated in what was probably one of Penn State's best blocking and protection for the quarterback and run game that we've probably seen in a long time. And also credit that to the offensive line. I mean, Clifford had all day on some of these throws, and, he connected on them. He had time to make those decisions, but offensive line play, outstanding in this game.
Yeah. We talked about it, I think, the beginning of the year a little more, but definitely need to bring it up again. They're the three most important jobs in the line, of course, the 2 tackles in the center, and they've been so reliable in those areas this year.
Even though there's been some question marks at those positions too. I mean, some of that's been, one of their better position battles for a starting spot.
I mean, I think the left guard situation is pretty much handled at this point.
Yeah.
Eric Wilson seems to have a stranglehold on that job to transfer from Harvard, who actually is pretty interesting in his media availability yesterday. His story is pretty crazy. I'm going to mention it real quick. He was at Harvard. His season gets canceled last year, of course, because the Ivy League cancels their football season due to COVID. He goes and so he's a senior. So he lives with a bunch of his teammates from Harvard in a Airbnb in Bethany Beach, Delaware, he said. And then he moves down to Nashville for the season. He's like, I literally remember watching the Penn State Indiana game at a bar. And I was like, that's unreal.
Wow.
And then so he finally gets back into college football and he commits to Auburn.
Yep.
And Gus Malzahn eventually gets let go by the Tigers. And he thinks he's going to then commit to LSU. And so, meanwhile, he's basically, I guess, going to go to LSU at this point. Then Phil Troutwine says today, we're on a call with him. He goes, we asked him about it. He goes, yes, then I got a call from Eric. And he's just like, I'm still interested. I'd love to come up. And he's like, next thing you know, he comes up. He loves it. And he's going to Penn State. And now he's their starting left guard. And he's been really, really crucial for them.
He's been solid.
Which is, very solid. And there was that battle between him and Anthony Wiggin going at the beginning of the season. But it seems like he's really taking control of that spot. We also saw Bryce Effner a little bit there, too, on Saturday night. But getting back to the tackles, Rasheed Walker and Caden Wallace are proving why they're going to be future NFL players. And their ability, we saw it on that one in the first quarter. I think Clifford had that one drop back against a 3-man rush. And I know it was a 3-man rush, but I think it was 7 seconds. I think I counted it on one of the replays. He had 7 seconds to throw the ball. He delivered an absolute strike, got a first down. If you're giving Clifford that time all day, he's going to be able to do something with it, either running or passing. So awesome job by them. And Miranda's been very solid at the center spot, too, after making that transition. So the O-line play, you can't complain at all right now about that. And the only thing that seems to be a question mark right now, I got to get that running game going, Alexis.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that we're saying that at this point in the season, considering how deep this room is. I mean, you still have Noah Cain, who's been a fixture at the starting spot. You have Kevon Lee, who obviously we know is just an absolute machine. And we also got to see John Lovett for the first time, and he certainly made some big plays. I mean, Franklin has said his skill set is, yes, it's very strong, but just in situational football, that is what he excels at, because he is so experienced. And he made a couple crucial plays for them, not only in the run game but also in the pass game.
Yeah, that screen was huge.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger plays of the game, I would say, for Penn State's offense. So this just needs to transition into that next level. What is that next level for Penn State's run game? They've established a really good, really strong pass attack with both the tight ends and the wide receivers. And, they're getting running backs involved in the pass game, but it's about taking that run game to the next level. And with the way the offensive line is playing right now, you have to be able to find those holes. You have to be able to get yards after contact. That just has to be something that this group is working intently on. They know that they have great protection. It's about just running with it, and that's what they need to be focusing on.
Yeah, as nice as it would be right now to be able to get Cain going and the rest of the group, it kind of is a positive sign for them, I think, because they still have so much more, I think, to unlock in this offense. Like, if they can get those guys going, especially, Lovett being back, I'm really interested to see what he could bring on a full scale, because I asked Franklin yesterday, I was like, how do you envision his role expanding in the coming weeks? He's like, we like his experience and what he can do a lot, because he's going to be, we saw it a little bit on Saturday, but he'll be on the kickoff return team. He'll be in the backfield on, third downs, first and long situations for whatever reason. And he'll be there to either be an option to catch a pass or, to get a good run on first or third down. So
can we see a wheel route, please?
Yeah, I could see that this weekend. I mean, I hope they get him some good reps this weekend, considering, just him getting back into the flow of things would be nice. But
yeah,
we'll see. I think that there is definitely going to be a game. I could see it being like Iowa or something like that, where they just have that great running game. We saw Noah Cain do that against Iowa a couple of years ago, but they'll have that game where they need to run the ball. Because as good as Sean's been, I hope I could be wrong, and I hope I am, but I think there's little chance that he sustains the type of play that he has, especially in these last couple games. Like, he's been really precise, really good. And, I mean, if he's that good and has that much time as he did last game, they're going to be in a really good position to succeed.
Yeah.
No matter if the running backs are doing well at that particular time or not.
Yeah, 100%. Let's transition a little defense now. A couple standouts against Auburn. Let's talk about Brandon Smith. I mean, he was all over the place at this game.
Yeah. Big Ten Player of the Week. I think he had
deservedly
career high 10 tackles. And by the way, if anyone was listening to Brandon Smith's media availability yesterday,
this is good.
He said that a student let him know that he had won Big Ten Player of the Week. That student was me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you know what? I was writing that update outside of my classroom that he was in my class.
Yeah, no, I was like sitting right next to Brandon Smith in like my Com 362 class or whatever, and he's just sitting there, and I see the alert pop up on my phone. It was like, hey, Brandon Smith takes home Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, and he was like confused at first because he said that on the Zoom too. He was like, I was like, oh, Brandon, congrats, you just won Big Ten Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week. He's like, oh yeah, cool, thanks. And then he was like, yeah, I didn't even like realize. Then all these texts started coming in, and I'm like, well, you can always remember that I was doing
That's awesome. But yeah, this was a great breakout game for him. I mean, we knew he was going to be, their guy at the linebacker spot, and he's earned that spot so far this season, and they can only hope that he's going to continue that performance once I get into Big Ten play, because that is going to be huge. Yeah,
Brandon Smith needed this game. He was not playing poorly, but he hadn't been standing out like we had expected him to. He had a solid game against Wisconsin, but before Ellis Brooks got ejected, he was certainly the standout linebacker from that game. But this is also a type of performance where you don't realize how good it was until you rewatch the game. Like, he was everywhere, like just all over the field, just making
sideline
plays.
To sideline.
Had that one tough penalty, which didn't end up killing them, but at the time was rough. But besides that, he was really fundamentally sound. Almost had that pick six.
How many bobbles did he have on that?
I can tell you that he probably thought about scoring that touchdown at least 3 times when bobbling that ball. But anyway, he was all over the field, just playing really well. Like, if he keeps doing that, those plays will come. So it was really encouraging signs from him. And I think, again, we have to mention, not a linebacker anymore, but, again, Jesse Luketa, what he's doing right now is some pretty special stuff.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about it because it's so impressive.
It is really special because last year, I just remember, and even in the offseason, I just wasn't that high on Jesse Luketa, honestly. Like, he had himself a disappointing year last year, and his athleticism was in question. His overall range was in question. And it's funny. He's taken this sort of hybrid role, this responsibility, and has just absolutely ran with it. He looks like, again, a completely different player than what he was a year ago, which is a really encouraging sign for them.
100%. Let's talk about a touchdown-saving tackle from Duke transfer Derek Tangelo. This guy found that out at Franklin's media availability.
Yesterday we need to make a dictionary of all the Penn State football nicknames. There's too many.
Arnold Eviketti, AK, Jaquan Congo, Brizzy, Tig. Yeah.
There's too many.
Just endless. We need to start keeping tabs on this. Anyway, Derek Tangelo, everybody that we've talked to has said that this is probably his best Penn game so far in a Penn State uniform. And you would have to agree, not just based off this one play, but just his consistency on the defensive line was extremely impressive. They're going to need this to continue because we knew PJ Mustipher was very solid coming into this year, but they had a question mark at that position before the season. We didn't really know who was going to be their fixture there, and Tangelo is absolutely the answer there.
Yeah, he was big time on Saturday night. They needed a guy to step up who hadn't stepped up before, and that was just such the perfect scenario for him. And I love, there's a picture, you can see it, I forget who posted it, but where he makes that tackle on, I think it was Jarquez Hunter, and you have 3 guys standing there that he's about to score, and then
God.
he I think they said that they clocked him at 19 miles
That's
an hour.
insane.
For a guy of his size,
yeah.
I mean, he was moving.
Yeah.
That is
I wouldn't want to be in the way of that.
That is just crazy. That's crazy athleticism. And, again, how many times are we going to say it? The impact these transfers are making between Tangelo, between AK, between, Eric Wilson now, love it. It's pretty unbelievable. And this is a different time in college football where you're able to utilize these transfers in this way. But they literally just not only filled up holes, but now they're thriving in these roles in their first season at Penn State, which is just really remarkable.
Yeah, it's insane. And a phrase that has become really relevant among Brent Pry's group so far this season, bend but do not break. And that is really what this defense has done. Maybe not against Ball State, because that was a really hard game to try and bend. But, they really have just adjusted so well when they were on the road at Wisconsin, when they were playing in this whiteout game. I mean, it's just insane the amount of poise they have under pressure, and obviously that's going to have to continue.
Yeah, I think it's their front, especially their front seven, their ability to get to the quarterback when it matters most. And they didn't record a sack on Saturday, but
which is insane.
It felt like they had multiple, just because they were, causing pressure. I love the different stunts that Brent Pry was throwing out there on Saturday. He was, making some interesting checks at the line, which was nice. And also, but with that, the safeties, especially Jaquan Brisker, his ability to kind of lurk in that end zone and be able to read the eyes of Bo Nix. He did it with Mertz, obviously. He is such a knack for that, and it makes it so freaking hard as a quarterback to be able to have to read that defender while you're watching the play unfold, and it's just such an unbelievable weapon for him to have. Brisker's versatility is truly unbelievable, and he is just such a critical part of this defense.
Yeah, 100%. So many contributors on this.
One other guy I want to talk about is definitely Joey Porter. I thought he had his best game of the season on Saturday night too. He had that one tough pass interference penalty. It was a close one, but I thought their receivers were held mostly in check throughout the night.
Yep, absolutely.
And he was their number one corner heading into the year, even though Tariq Castro-Fields had that experience on him a little bit. But I think Saturday night he definitely showed why he is the most talented corner on this team. Yep. Just in terms of a coverage standpoint.
The athleticism, the ball skills.
He is. I couldn't have said it either two words better. Athleticism and ball skills, we saw them firsthand. He's always, it seems, making a play on the ball, which is always what you want out of a corner. I mean, he's not only having great coverage, but is trying to, of course, cause a big play, cause a turnover, and Franklin talks about it all the time. You need to win turnover battle to win ball games.
Absolutely. Let's move into this week. Villanova and state matchup.
Oh, the Cats.
Really, what I want to see out of this game is a repeat from Ball State. get up early, get your reserves in, get some quality experience in Beaver Stadium, and get, like I just said, get these younger guys some more experience, because that's only gonna pay off down the road, especially if injuries strike.
First of all, I just want to say, noon game. Gotta love a noon game. We'll have a nice little early schedule that day, which would be nice.
Yay.
But anyways, this game, I just keep thinking, must be so tough if you're James Franklin, just because
you want to keep going.
No, it's so hard. You got to maintain that focus. Like, you can't look ahead. Like, we're already looking ahead to Iowa, and they still have that Indiana game at home, and looking ahead is just so easy to do right now when you're 3-0, when you're number 6 in the country, and this is an FCS team that's coming in here. But of course,
same record as Penn State though.
They are 3-0. They had a big comeback win last week against I think it was Bucknell, I believe. Or I know they beat Lehigh. And I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're averaging in the 40s for their points per game.
I did a little players to watch thing on them this week. They have some good players. I think Daniel Smith is their name of their quarterback. He had a good game last week and has played well so far this season. I know they have a ton of experience there, but again, this is team you got to beat. This game,
10 receivers making a catch again.
Yeah, they should go for 11.
Yeah, beat the record.
No, seriously, you want to get your first team guys the reps they need, start the half, and then your hope is by halftime that you can get some of those reserves in and some of those freshmen in that are doing their redshirt years and try to get them as much experience as they can. There's going to be a lot of people there still. James Franklin said there was only like 1,000 tickets left.
Yeah.
So, which is it'll be a nice little environment. So that is just something that they're going to have to manage. Just this tough fourth kind of game where you're on such a high right now from Auburn, but at the same time you have to keep that focus, keep that mentality. I'm not doubting that they will at all.
Yeah, 100%. Keys to the game. What do we got?
Let's do it. First, probably say this one every week at this point. Keep protecting the football. Sean Clifford done an awesome job so far. Like we said, just that one pick, and that was basically
we won't count it.
I'll call it a half a turnover. And but yeah, seriously, they've done a great job holding on to the football. Talk about winning the turnover battle all the time, and if you keep doing that, it's a recipe to win ball games. And just doing that and maintaining that focus in those practices in a game like Villanova this weekend, that's just what you want out of your team, and that's just something you hope to ask. Second thing is, in that first half, when you have your first team guys out there, let's get Noah Cain going a little bit. Like, this is a defense he can exploit. He is a far superior athlete than a lot of these guys. Build his confidence up, like you said. Get him some good touches. Get him let him find the end zone, and let Noah Cain do what he's proved that he can do before his injury. So that's my second. And my third is,
speaking of injuries,
for the love of everything good, get out of this game healthy. Don't keep guys in too long. Don't if this is
it's not worth it.
At what score, Alexis, are you starting to take guys, like your first team guys out?
I mean,
what is it? So say it's at half, it's 24-3.
20. Oh yeah, 100%. First team guys got to be on the bench. You can't be taking any chances. Not at this point. I mean, if they get within a touchdown.
I think I'm thinking after 4 touchdowns. If it was 28-3, maybe.
Yeah, that's comfortable enough even for these reserves to be out there with confidence.
That is true. Yep. Because you would think that these reserves would probably be some of like the better recruits in Villanova history. And so just get out of the game healthy. Keep everyone in good shape. Nobody gets nicked up. That's all you got to hope for. And they've knock on wood had some luck with injuries so far this year. So yeah, that's my last key. All right, so now that we have kind of shifted from the Villanova game a little bit, Alexis, any final notes for us?
It's finally starting to feel like college football weather.
Yeah, it is. I'm so glad
in State College.
That.
I mean, there's just such a nice breeze in the air. The leaves are falling. Like you couldn't see a better scene right now from a weather standpoint in State College. Let's hope this continues, because I'm sick and tired of being overheated and sweaty in this press box. I've had enough of it. This 80-degree weather, like, yeah, it's nice the first week. Like, when you're back, it still feels like summer. But at this point, I'm done with it. It needs to be nice fall, crisp weather for college football. And, yeah, that's really it.
I feel like as a kid, I hated fall. But now that
I mean, I hate it too, just because of my allergies. No, I hate it.
I just hate it because like school is back and like wow.
Yeah.
But like ever since like I've been in college, fall's. I mean, up here it's definitely the best season. And like it's just when that feeling is in the air and it's like cool and crisp in the morning, it is like college football season. So that always gets me excited.
It's college football season.
That always gets me excited.
Let's go.
And by the way. Indiana games at 7:30. That means you know what that means for us. That's another 2:30 a.m. night in the press box. So
we'll be taking
if anyone
a late
wants to come
night,
say hi, it's at the game late.
Yeah.
We'll be in the press box.
Late nights.
Till about 2-something. So that'll be
at
fun.
Beaver Stadium in the press box.
Love a 7:30 kickoff.
Can't wait.
Totally.
All right. Let's end on that.
Oh, one more thing.
Oh, we're not ending? Okay.
One more. Jordan Stout. Good job making those kicks. Keep making them. I mean, he's been awesome. So keep doing what you're doing. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. On that note, we're going to end. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Collegian Football Podcast. For Justin, I'm Alexis. We'll see you here next time.